Hello, my friend. I'm Kiddo, and today I'm going to share what serving 4,000 customers in 12 months has taught me about solo scaling. So, getting right into things, the number one thing I think I've learned is how much more I can do and how much more is possible through what I'm already doing. First and foremost, I haven't reached the physical bottleneck yet. So even though I'm packing all these item orders, I haven't reached the physical limit of what I'm capable yet of, packing on a daily basis. I think the important thing to consider here is because of the internet, me going from selling at a local market to then considering, accessing the domestic market through the internet to then also accessing the international market through infinite leverage of the internet, it is really important to consider that for me, I know now that my limit is I'm nowhere close to my limit. I think the moment that you transition from physical to digital as well, for example, there's going to be a limit to how many orders I can ship and how many orders I can physically pack. But when it comes to content, there is no limit to, the reach that the things that I create, the things that I publish will have because of the infinite leverage that the internet grants you. Doing what I'm doing has also reinforced, the importance of picking the right vehicle. I think if I was selling at a local market, if I was not filming, then I would be limited to the active time that I spend at the market and the active physical goods that I have brought with me on that day. However, by transitioning to the internet, by transitioning and building my base on the internet, being able to store an inventory that is larger for longer and not have to, physically cart it around, that has been super helpful. And then my output is when an item sells, it doesn't matter whether it's somebody local, doesn't matter whether it's somebody around the country or overseas. I have picked the right vehicle to access higher and higher levels of scale. Moving on now to number 2, which is all limits are self-imposed. I am in a shed in backyard Australia. So what I've done now and what I'm doing hasn't really been done before. And if it has been done before, it hasn't really been documented and advertised, because otherwise I'd be looking up to that person. I'd be trying to learn as much as I could from that person because that's what I wanted to do. So I think the importance of, nobody has more context on you than you. Nobody has more context on me than me. So in terms of my limits, it is so easy to, listen to other people for our own limits, but ultimately you need to decide for you what your limits are. You need to decide what you're going to do and understand that your vision for yourself is yours for a reason, and other people cannot decide what your limits are for you. At the end of the day, a lot of people are only operating from their zone of consciousness, their zone of awareness, their zone of intelligence. You can't listen to somebody else's view on what you're going to do. So sometimes that means you need to create your own archetype and you need to be the first. For me, I'm the first hybrid entrepreneur, musician, YouTuber, content creator. I'm doing all of these things for me because I just feel like those are naturally what I'm interested in right now. This video is what I want to make right now. So I'm following my own signal. I'm following my own path. And the thing is about doing your own thing is that there's not going to be a how-to manual. A lot of the time, you're just going to have to make it up as you go. You're going to have to look at other people's journeys, other people's stories, and piece together the parts that are relevant to you and then leave out the rest. So obviously with everything that I'm saying right now as well, take the pieces that are valuable from me, use them in your own story, and just aim to become more and more comfortable with uncertainty and more, trust in yourself. Because ultimately, the modern obstacle is not a lack of opportunity. The modern obstacle is a lack of self-esteem. If you've got that self-esteem, then there is no limit to what you can do. All limits are self-imposed. Number 3 now is more of an operational standpoint, but it's the importance of focus on key levers. So if you look at everything you're doing, there's probably, 1 to 3 things that you could do daily that actually move the needle, that actually contribute and create results. For me personally, on a broader level, my key levers at the moment are content, music, listings, / the inputs of my business, and obviously working out as well. Content being the distribution, music being the creative expression, listing being the economic empowerment, and then the working out and the physical health being energy management so that I can sustain everything. The easiest way to identify your key levers is they have to be repeatable and they have to be able to compound. Ultimately, You know, if I go to a garage sale and I find a box full of Nirvana shirts, that's not something that is repeatable easily. That is not something that, you know, I can compound and build on. Whereas if I built my business around, you know, $30 t-shirts and I can find heaps of those, then it's repeatable. And also if I have a customer that, you know, comes through and buys 2 to 3 shirts and then they like those shirts, they come back later on and they realize, you know, I've got another 100 $30 t-shirts. I've created something that's compounding. I've created something that, you know, ascends in value because I can keep on building on top of it. When you're identifying these key levers, it is important to realize that, you know, the time is not the bottleneck. Energy ends up being the bottleneck. If you are focused on the key moves that actually contribute and create results, then what ends up happening is you need to be more aware of where you are delegating your energy. And I know for me, I had to put more energy into the key levers and kind of take that energy away from the things that didn't really matter. The moment I started doing that is the moment that I started to create those results. And by showing up daily and focusing on those daily levers, I was able to compound, I was able to repeat, I was able to, you know, really get ahead and start accessing higher and higher levels of scale. Number 4 now is it reinforced optionality and autonomy as some of my key values. So I actually built this business backwards. I built it backwards from the lifestyle and also the timetable that I wanted. I wanted to be able to do what I wanted when I wanted to and dedicate a few concentrated hours to the work and then be able to do, you know, the other things that I wanted in life. So building my business backwards and thinking about it this way actually enabled me to make the business better operationally because I had key constraints in which to build it around. I think a lot of people will just take the constraint of, you know, the 9-to-5 job and then just transplant that into their business. So now they're just operating, you know, a 9-to-5 business. Whereas the optionality that I willingly chose meant that, you know, at first I was working insane hours to build the systems and to build the processes and to get better. But as time went on, I got better and better at those processes. My system got stronger and smoother. And as a result, you know, optionality and autonomy were baked in from the beginning. I think one of the biggest things to think about, and also something that was important for me to remember, is that if somebody has different key values to you, they're going to end up with different results. So for me, I wanted optionality. I wanted autonomy. There was a lot of people that I spoke to who didn't value those things, who didn't put as much importance on those values. You know, I think a lot of people want to work for themselves. A lot of people want the free time. But when you look at their actions, they are not creating situations in their life that would lead to those key values being reflected in reality. So I always kept optionality and autonomy as my foundational values on which to build the business on top of. And so just being aware that, you know, you are going to get different results if you build the business from different values. My next move for the business is to extend this optionality and autonomy to my mother. And I think one of the biggest advantages I've had within my business is a lot of what I do is not for me. I think when you're doing it for a reason bigger than yourself, I think when you are doing it for reasons beyond ego, beyond money, beyond the external validation, you start to tap into spiritual power. You start to tap into reserves of energy that nobody else has. For example, if I'm competing against somebody who is only in it for the money, I'm going to lap them every time because I have a deeper reason. I can go longer. I have more grit, all because I'm not only just doing it for me, I'm doing it for my family, I'm doing it for my future, I'm doing it for my family's future, and that really gives me a competitive advantage when it comes to the hard times and when things aren't going smoothly. Straight on to the next now, and the final one, which is boring works. So we have this misconception that, you know, the work within our business has to be exciting, and it's simply not the truth. I think it is so crucial to understand that your work doesn't have to be exciting. What can be exciting is the results. What can be exciting is the life you live outside of the business. So for example, I've been able to, you know, swim with sharks. I've been able to go skydiving. I've been able to travel overseas. Now, the business itself has been boring. Like, you know, I'm literally selling used clothing, vintage clothing, and doing it over and over again. And that repetition has led to compounding. It has led to the results that have enabled me to live life outside of the business. And so ultimately, you can build a business that's boring that produces the exciting life. And that is totally okay. If you look at a lot of the businesses that are simple problem solving businesses, chances are that they are doing well, and they may not sound that exciting, but their balance sheets are very healthy. Boring is ultimately what leads to freedom, because once you are okay with boring, once you are okay with embracing the boredom that comes with doing the same work over and over again, you can then become good at what you do through lots of repetition and lots of practice. The last thing I would say is that trusting yourself is going to be the most important part. I think through the boredom, you learn to trust yourself. Through the uncertainty, you learn to trust yourself. Ultimately, trusting the process, and everybody loves to talk about the process. Trusting the process is ultimately just learning how to trust yourself. The biggest limiting belief, I think, is that, we need massive teams or we need other people to do what we want, and it's just not the truth. Ultimately, you can do it by yourself, and that's one of the biggest things that solo scaling has taught me, that my ideal situation was working by myself, for myself, and the ability to do it by myself was always there. It was just a simple matter of executing on my ideas. It was just a simple matter of believing fundamentally that I can do it by myself and proving that to myself every single day. So I want to say that, if you have a goal, 100% can do it by yourself. You just have to identify the key levers. You have to understand, at the end of the day, if there's work to be done, that you're the one that has to do it, because you can't delegate, you can't, blame anybody else for that situation. And by solo scaling, by working on this by myself, one of the biggest realizations has been like, at the end of the day, I'm on the hook. If I don't get the results that I want, I have nobody else to blame. It's just me. So those are just some of the things that serving 4,000 plus customers in 12 months has taught me about solo scaling. I'm Kiddo. Thank you very much for watching if you made it this far, and I'll see you on the next one.